Hi, this is Rose Bianco, and I'm on Hellblazer with Chris Gordon.
Everyone, I have the honor and the privilege of the company of Rose Bianco today. Hey, Rose, thank you. Rose is currently seen, or I'll say currently, one of the roles she's currently seen is as a Rosa in Cobra Kai, which is a huge hit show, and it's getting even bigger now. It's going on Netflix, so welcome.
I know, thank you. I'm excited about it going on Netflix.
I know, it's fantastic. That was brilliant news recently. So I mean, I had to get. I've only started watching it recently. When I was, it's been on my list for a long time. But with obviously YouTube Premium, you're thinking, like a lot of other people, I think have thought it's another subscription. So
Right.
I got a 1 month free trial and binge watched all two series of Cobra Kai so far. And after episode 1, hooked, totally hooked. It's just an amazing show. It really is.
Thank you. I think so too. I watched all of it. I actually subscribed to YouTube for a while. As it turns out, it's really good for having uninterrupted music and things like that.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised at how good it was because it's not a wooden, it's not bad acting, it's not bad production, and it's not bad story. It's all very good story, and it's very, very compelling. You know, it's kind of like one of those binge watchable shows.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely, and it is. I mean, yeah, you're right. The stories. I was going to go. The story is very compelling. I've spoken to several actors from this, and the fact I love the way it's a complete 180. I just love that from the original film of Danny being the downtrodden guy. Then all of a sudden you're seeing it in older life, and it's a switch. And Johnny's now the downtrodden guy. But in fact, if you look into his past, in a way, he always has been. We just never saw that. And that's what I love about it. It's like, you get past the hatred and the animosity, and you'll find that you're actually pretty much got lots of things in common with everybody. And that's what I love about that show.
Exactly, because, well, Johnny's characterization by Billy Zabka is so complex, and it's so great. He is like a typical, like they let him say all kinds of politically incorrect things, but you know what? We all have friends or family who are like that, and they're lovable and they're fine and they don't mean anything by it.
Yeah.
Or they're just whatever. They're just cranky, and he is able to make a character who is relatable and that you can empathize with. And then on the other side, there's Daniel, who is, he's not all good. He's kind of annoying and obnoxious and not very nice sometimes.
Yep.
So there's just, everybody's such a complex character. And then the voyage, what do you call it? The trajectory that Xolo Maridueña does as Miguel is so believable and so realistic in a way. It's just so, I don't know, interesting. While at the same time being with narrative, plot points, all that stuff that makes the show work.
Definitely. Yeah, you see that. Yeah, that transition of Xolo as he goes from obviously the bullied kid, the outcast, exactly like Danny, and then but his transition rather than where Danny went into it with obviously Mr. Miyagi, and in that way, in Xolo, it's happened where you do see sometimes where the child who's the abused child, the bullied child, turns into that kind of character, and he doesn't mean to, because I mean, that's not what he means to do, but that's his focus is so strong in that respect. He's looking to it. I think he's looking for that father figure in that life, and he found it with Johnny, and then now obviously with Kreese, because Kreese has come in as Mr. Hard Guy. He's
he
very
is
dominating.
He's quite a guy. But with respect to, I think Miguel's character, that a lot of the viewers might be able to relate to, or identify with. You can see, it's like you said, we're all kind of the same. And you can see his point of view. And you can even see that's just the wrong path, Miguel. But I can understand what you're doing. And you're hoping that he gets enlightenment. And he has a strong home support system, which is good. So that's a good thing.
Definitely. I mean, I say, I mean, I was bullied as a kid, and if I'd gone that path, I mean, I'd nurtured with a good family background, so it took me the other direction, thankfully. But I could have, you do see it, and exactly as you've just said, you can see in yourself that there's a point in your time or in your past where you might have actually been Miguel, and you might have followed that path because, God help me, there's still revenge. I still think what would it be like to get revenge like that and just go in and just, and it is very, very compelling and very compelling viewing. And all of you guys have all gelled so well as a cast that you act it so perfectly as well, I think. There's not one, like you just said earlier on, that it's not wooden, it's everyone is just absolutely amazing in their roles that you play. And obviously Rose is hilarious with the character.
Oh, I love it. It's so great. I love my character. My character. But she's also not just hilarious. So.
Oh no, extremely clever, extremely wise.
No, I also have a little bit more depth in the next season, and that's all I can say about that. I'm happy about that also.
Okay, that was a question I was saving to later, is how would you like to see that develop? And obviously I know we can't talk about season 3, so it'd be nice to see. In fact, it'd be very good to see your character develop some more and see more of her, because she definitely is a feisty one.
Yeah, she's just a great character, and even though it's like I have a lot of comedic lines, like joke lines, which are really, as an actor, let me tell you, I love it. I love doing funny stuff. But it's all like, I have a lot of people that I can draw from, my own mother or my aunties and things like that, people who are kind of like that, who are super feisty. It's realistic.
Yeah. Definitely. It's good, and that's it's to draw those kind of inspirations for a character from people you've actually yourself as well. That does make it, it's more personal then as well. Knowing that is, you can see it's much more of a personal role, and you can bring the aspects of your life into a role as well. It is good to see and good to have. But then obviously you are a classically trained actress anyway, so you would have that kind of you'd have that training to back.
I always do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say that's something you would always do from your background that you've had. And speaking of that, Rose, obviously I think it was the Victory Gardens was when you debuted, way back on your theatre. I'm not going to say way back. Sorry, that means really rude. I don't mean it like that.
Was way back. Sometimes I don't feel so old, but when I think about things like I used to walk around New York City with a Walkman. I mean, my boyfriend back in New York, way back in the day, brought me a gift. It was a phone with no cord in the house. That was like a really exciting gift.
I remember that. Oh, yeah. I remember Walkmans. I actually found one in my attic. I was clearing the attic out the other week and I found my old Sony Walkman. I was like, oh, wow. And my 13-year-old son was like, Dad, what is that?
Exactly.
Like, really? You couldn't go anywhere. In fact, I remember the Ghetto Blaster before it was the Walkman, people walking, So
yes, you don't seem that old.
Thank you.
You're like a child.
Oh, cheers, thanks. I appreciate that comment as well because I feel really old lately. So still, I'm in my mid-40s, so I'm in the middle. Yeah, youthful behaviour. I've not grown up. That's why.
That's what it is.
It must be.
That's good.
Thank you. When you obviously again in your early career, you were from San Francisco. You joined the Les Nicolettes. Now I read about the Les Nicolettes, so I was interested in the name. And if I'm right, it was a female experimental theatre artist group from the city, who then actually created their own like feminist satirical performances art troupe.
Yes.
That's where I got. That's my research. That sounds really, really interesting. How was it working with those guys? I mean, again, it's taking you right back. But they sound like a very interesting, funny, and different approach to theatre, from what I read.
Yes. You did do a lot of research. I studied acting in an acting conservatory in Chicago, and I was also a theater major in college. And I've done, because I'm Hispanic, and even though I seem so white, I'm perceived as Hispanic, maybe, especially then, I had more of an accent. I had to kind of get over my Chicago. Well, I still have a little bit of a Chicago accent, but it was definitely like a Chicago Latina type accent, which I worked on. I did a lot of voice and diction. So I did backstage stuff and assistant directed in college and things like that. And I had to fight for roles in the acting school. I played in Come Back Little Sheba. I played Marie, and I had to talk the director into casting me, sort of because I did a good job, but also he sees it's a very typical waspy role.
Right.
But I was able to do some of those things in school. But once I got into the professional life, I did a lot of Hispanic bankers, teller, secretaries, clinic, receptionist, things like that.
Yeah.
And I still, to a degree, well, we'll get to that. But so when I was in San Francisco, I went to visit, and I loved it so much, I just decided to stay. Seriously, like from one day to the next, I called my sister. Like, send me $100. I need some money, Pat. I'm staying in Chicago. I mean, in San Francisco. So, I went to a comedy club, and Robin Williams dropped by unexpectedly, and I gave a 1-hour performance right in front of me.
Oh my God, that must have been amazing.
Unbelievable. That's when I said, I'm staying in San Francisco. This is a super cool city. I love it. But so I auditioned for a show with the Nicolettes, and I got cast, and then I became like a member of the group, and we did very silly stuff. We wrote the plays and staged them, directed them, did the sets, and it was an all-female endeavor pretty much. There were some guys who helped us. My boyfriend at the time was a furniture mover, so he moved the sets a lot for theater to theater.
Handy.
And it was campy. It was camp. But you see, back in that time, in the 70s, camp was
the big thing, wasn't it?
Fun, yes. It was a fun thing, and it's glitter. We wore glitter all the time. And our motto was, "You're not a Nicolette." I can't even remember our motto anymore. It's like, "You're not a Nicolette if you don't ship glitter," or something like that. So
great motto.
It was, but I got to sing, and I'm not much of a singer, so it was fun to be in a campy cabaret type shows and sing my heart out, which is like one of those things I love, but I can't really do. So I've never been able to do a real musical.
Yeah.
So it was empowering because we supported each other, we worked together, and it was a feminist perspective despite the campiness and the glitter.
Yeah.
So all this was very big in San Francisco, certainly, and probably nationwide around that time.
I was going to say, especially that time, it was for an all-female troupe as well. It would have been quite the forward-thinking thing at that time, because obviously back then there was still that oppression and that view. It was it still is a male-dominated world. I'm not going to say, but it was very much so back then. So to for that to be breaking through and breaking great ground like that, and San Francisco was a hotbed for, I think, bringing everything towards everything, dragging everything out of the past and bringing it into the future. I think San Francisco is always a hotbed for
that. It is. It was really a very avant-garde scene. The comedy scene was big. I actually worked as a waitress in a comedy club. That same comedy club. I went back and got a job there.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So it was just a really exciting place to be, and it was very good for me to be in that all women's group because they made me feel more confident and less kind of receding into the background. So it made me feel like I had a space to say what I needed to say. And excellent. I'm not highly political or anything like that. And I was in my 20s at the time, so, or like in my very early 20s. So it was formative to let me know that I can speak out and not be so shy. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it was very formative for me.
Fantastic. And there's a great backing and great grounding for you to have to obviously then build your career on and move on and have that confidence and that self-belief, I think is something probably as well what it sounds like it's given you didn't have it before, but obviously it strengthened your self-belief and your and worth, which is fantastic. And I mean, you also moved to New York as well, and you studied with Bill Hickey. Is that the same Bill Hickey from Prizzi's Honor and
yes,
yeah, and National Lampoons? Because I remember him from there, National Lampoon, and I know he voiced in Nightmare Before Christmas. I know he did a voice on as well. He did many other things as well, fantastic roles. But they're three that I remember quite well, especially
good
National
heavens.
Lampoons for me. As the grisly old, as a classic role that was. So I mean, how was that experience? Because obviously, going from the Nicolettes in San Francisco and then studying with someone like Bill Hickey as well.
Well, even while I was with the Nicolettes, and I was having a great time. I was having a lot of fun. But all along I was thinking, because for some crazy idea, I decided to be an actor, which is a completely alien. And my family were like, "You want to do what? What? Are you crazy?" So I was studying even in San Francisco with a teacher named Richard Dubin, doing scene study. You always keep studying. And I think I was studying singing for a little while. And I decided I should try and get more serious about it. And I got an agent. I did a lot of industrials, which is like corporate videos. And I auditioned for the Magic Theater, which was a professional theater there. And I booked a show and I got my equity card. And so I felt like, okay, I think it's time to move on. And I have my equity card now, which is very important when you go to New York. And I have an agent. I have some reel material, although in those days, the reel was on a 8-track or like, what was it called? Some big giant disc.
The massive
cassette. A real big cassette like that. But so I went to New York, and boy, it was like swimming upstream. It was very difficult to get an agent, and I just kind of pounded the pavement and sent letters and postcards, and I did some showcase type shows with some theater companies, and I studied improv, and I studied at HB Studios, but only for about 6 months. And I studied with Julie Bavassa, who is a great teacher. She's passed on. She was a great actress. She was like with experimental La Mama and stuff like that. She was a great actress and a great teacher, more than Bill. Bill was just kind of like, he was a sharp, and he could give us notes on our scenes that would make us have insight into how best to approach the scene. And it's all about, if you do the scene as best you can, following the method that you've learned, the subtext, the backstory, all that sort of thing, and the moment to moment, the beats. You've got the script, you put the pencil marks where the beats should go. All of this is like, acting 101. And he would then give a comment, and he was very funny, by the way, and always very dry humor. But what he said always made you go, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." So this is the kind of discovery that you constantly do in the acting business.
Yeah.
And I did improv, I can't even remember the improv group that I worked with, but just because you have to learn how to think on your feet, sometimes you forget your line, but maybe you can improvise something right off the bat.
Yeah.
Even when you're auditioning nowadays on tape now for movies, sometimes there's a little bit of room for a little bit of improvisation because you have to be able to think without thinking about thinking.
Yeah.
So all of that is just training and experience and doing.
Fantastic. Sorry, it's great. I was enthralled. That's brilliant to hear. I love what you said about the improvisation. You still do it. There's one memory. There's a guest show a while back. Erin Elizabeth Burns. She's lovely. She was on a film with Samuel Jackson. And I bring it for improvisation. It just sounds to me like it would have been a dream. She said there was a scene where she was with him, and I think her brother had been killed. And she said on the spur of the moment, she improvised. She was going to turn around because she thought her character would go back to see her brother one more time because obviously because they had to move on and leave. She turned round, and as she turned, she felt an arm across her like that, and it was Samuel L. Jackson, and he was like, no, he goes, you know what? He goes, you don't want to go. He goes, it's not worth it. Goes,
and that was all improvised.
It was all improvised, and they left
and
it
that
in the
was
film.
A very real moment.
It was, yeah.
Moment, yeah.
And they left it in the film, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, that is. That's what you do discover when you're doing film work.
Yeah, I think and it's great that you can work together and you have that. You can get that kind of a bond with when you're working. So,
I don't have big roles in films, and you don't have that much license to go. But there are something that's already come out. For example, I was in Being Mary Jane. This was a long time ago, and we were talking, and one of her good friends had just died, and it was a very sad scene. Gabrielle Union is an amazing actress. I'm starting to cry thinking about her in that scene. Oh my gosh. But anyway, I just took, there was a box of Kleenex on the table, and I just took it, and I'm talking to her, and she was crying, and I just kind of dried her tears as I was talking. And it was like a moment because I got so close to her, and then it was cut. And then it was moving on. We did that scene in one take.
Wow.
Because it was just organic. It was just a thing that I did. Another situation, I did a movie with Rick Gonzalez, and he was my son, and it was like a TV movie. And then the director, we were arguing, and the director said, keep going, beyond the written lines. And we were improvising where I'm saying to him, you're a grown man. Don't blame this on that girl. This is your child. Act like a man. Things like that. And that was that big section of that improvised section was kept in the movie. So it's good to learn it a little bit so that you're familiar with how it feels to be in the character's shoes, and then keep talking as if that character. What would you do? And it doesn't all have to be comedy improv shows. This is the purpose of improv also.
Yeah.
So that makes sense?
It does, yeah, it does. It's very interesting. And it's sorry, coughing. It's fascinating to hear and fascinating to learn the kind of the different processes that you can put yourself in, and as you grow as an actor, that you can actually you can use those and start to, like you say, with your show reels now, you've got that little bit of a freeway where you can actually start putting stuff in. It's just fascinating to learn that, and because I mean from everyone I speak to, you're always growing, you're always learning. Even there's never a day goes by when you don't learn something new, and that's every day in life anyway, in general. But I know with that, especially with acting, there's always new techniques, there's always new ways to do things, and you grow as an actor, which is great to hear.
And you discover things that you've only read in books or heard about or logically or intellectually, you know that this was supposed to happen. And then when you experience it, it's like a discovery, and you're like, oh, and it helps. It enhances every moment, enhances what your future career.
Yeah, definitely. And it just sounds great. And then obviously, then you get, as you just, I can't speak. I can't think of the words, but I agree totally. I'll just say it that way. Of what I mean. That's great. So what's kind of with Cobra Kai then? We'll take on to that one now. With you, obviously, you are Miguel's grandmother, or Yaya, in that role. I mean, were you a fan of Karate Kid yourself to begin with?
Yeah, of course. But only the Karate Kid. I never saw the other Karate Kid movies. I only recently saw, the Karate Kid 2, I guess.
Yeah.
And he goes to Japan with Miyagi.
Oh yeah, it's 2. Yeah.
I only recently saw that, and that was okay, but it's nothing like the first movie, which I really like. And I was a big Ralph Macchio fan.
So. And now you get to work with him. Which must be fantastic. You're right. I think that's a lot of people have said that about Cobra Kai. It's the sequel to the Karate Kid that you always wanted. People always wanted, and that should have happened. Not going to knock the other. I liked 2 and 3. They're okay. I won't mention the other one, which did star Pat Morita. But I'm not gonna, so yeah, but I won't mention it. But that's what Cobra Kai I think draws a lot of fans to. It's because it's for new fans, they're rediscovering it because they've seen it, and then they're going back to watch the Karate Kid if they've not seen it, and they're like, whoa.
Yes. In fact, to see the movie after you've seen the show, it ties together so well.
Yeah.
It's like this. It's like watching a prequel.
It is.
It's perfect.
Definitely. So it doesn't matter which way round you actually see the show and the film, because like you said, they just gel and they just mingle and fit so well with the storylines. The big 3 have brought that on, and full kudos to those 3 for bringing that in and creating this world, this universe of or recreating the Karate Kid universe and doing it fantastically well. I mean, and it's so exhilarating as well, because obviously you've all got your parts to play. You play Yaya, so you wisecracking. And hopefully we will see more of that in season 3, which you've alluded to, but we can't talk about until it airs, which is not much longer, I don't think, is it? It's obviously COVID's delayed it, as it's delayed everything else. But we shall see about that. How did you find working with the big 3? I'll call them the big 3 because that's what everyone says.
Usually I don't know the producers and creators. I go on a set, I do my thing. I might work a day or a week or a couple of weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
In this case, it was cool because every time I went on the Cobra Kai set, there was at least one of the guys, but I met them all. They've all had turns directing, and they've also had guest directors, but they were there also.
Yeah.
And they're just so approachable, so normal, and not scary. Okay, does that make sense to you?
Yep.
It's because I'm a minor player, so I don't usually bother the big wigs. And they're just, I could talk to them. I'm following John Hurwitz. He follows me. He likes my pictures. We've emailed. I can talk. John Hurwitz in particular, I just talked more. I think he might have more of a role, maybe dealing with the actors. I don't know. But he's the person I speak to the most. He's very kind.
Yeah.
Just like a kind guy. It's got that vibe so much. Sterling is interesting. He's kind of funny, but he's dry, and he's kind of more withdrawn, but he's just very, very open to your questions. If you go up to him and you say, oh, hey, I was wondering if such and such, and go, yeah. He will be forthcoming. Josh, I only met a couple of times, and he's outgoing. He's kind of a more extroverted person.
Right.
And he's funny, and he's just cool. I mean, I haven't spoken to him a lot, but I don't feel uncomfortable around any of them. They're all like down to earth, regular guys. So I could definitely vouch for that. And so it's a pleasure. I've then gone back to see some of their other movies. I finally saw Harold and Kumar go to White Castle, which was like, oh my God, that's so funny. And I did see Hot Tub Time Machine in the past, but I saw it again. I'm like, oh my God, it's extra funny.
They are good films.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely. It's great to hear. I mean, the people I've spoken to seem to have the same sort of opinion of those guys as well, that they've couldn't have a bad word to say about how they interact, because you're right, I don't think a lot of shows where the producers, obviously the producers is a very hectic and busy role anyway, so they don't always have time to come and involve themselves and talk to the actors as well. And I think John Hurwitz has been really good with fans, because the fans love him, as you all are. And I think that's another thing which has made the show great, is when you have such that a symbiotic relationship on social media with the fans and the cast. There's a few other shows I know which have been really successful, and that's one of the reasons, I think, is because the cast have always been so responsive to questions. They've been you come on the show like mine, for example, and you're really responsive to fans, and that really makes people warm to the show even more, I think, because you start to get to know, you feel like you get to know you a bit more.
Yeah, it's very complimentary and flattering, so I'm happy to do it. I wanted to just say something else about the whole producer thing. Honestly, they are the creators, and I guess they're executive producers as well as regular producers. I don't know the distinction too much, but I can say that usually when you are on any set, usually you don't really interact too much to the producers, because they're always with the director and the editors, and they're like all the time. but these producers they walk around, they eat at the catering table. They're just like they're not so full of themselves, not to say anything bad about anybody, but they're extra down to earth.
Excellent. Fantastic. It's great to hear. Like you said, I know it's nice feedback to have from them. It's great. That involvement there as well is great. I've actually got carrying on with talking about, I've actually got one sort of drawing to a close. I've got one from Helen Irving, who's a fan, a question. She says, she did say, she goes, she'd like to know, you are so funny as Rosa Diaz. And she's got some great one-liners. So we've discussed a little bit, obviously, your background working with the comedy club as a waitress and with the Les Nicolettes. So, have you had a comedy background apart from that, or have you got any other hidden talents you might have?
Well, most of the time, excuse me, I do serious parts in shows, but I treasure getting funny roles. It's fun doing funny roles. I studied improv a few times, and I was in an improv group in New York when I lived there. It's very hard to do improv, but not as hard as doing comedy. I would never try doing comedy, stand-up comedy.
It's another world, isn't it?
I admire that a lot. And I've done, like, on film and TV work, I think I did a pretty funny role on Devious Maids. Can't remember too many, because I usually have more straight roles. So I really like having the funny role. On stage, I've done comedies every once in a while, but I don't do a lot of stage in my latter years because I just don't have time, because I'm acting in film and TV. So,
fair enough.
I don't know if that helps, if that tells you anything.
No, it does. I did answer the questions. There you go. Thank you. I've got a signature question as well, Rose, which, before I ask you for final comments, is this question. It's an off the beat question, and I had a guy who came on my show a few years back, and he was a Muppeteer with Jim Henson. fantastic in itself. For 30 years he's done that, as well as in Star Wars. And the question was sent by a fan to him, and I've asked everybody since. So everybody who's been listening will know what this question is now, to my previous ones, is if you could have a Muppet created after your own personality, or if there's one existing, what Muppet would it be? It's a tough one.
I think Telly Monster might be the one that I really like. That's my inner self. Mm-hmm. That's me all the time. It's just like I'm so excited all the time. It's life is an adventure, and I'm always very nosy, and I'm always into it. So, and Telly Monster is very endearing. I like him. So, and I also know the guy who plays him. So.
Oh, brilliant! That's even better.
Yeah. Marty Robinson worked on Sesame Street with the Muppets.
Oh,
he was a Snuffleupagus and Telly Monster.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh! I was just going to tell you that that's not the only reason I picked it, because I'm thinking there's a girl that I think her name is Rosie, one of the Muppets. But I can't know for sure. I do know that from watching Sesame Street when I used to watch it when my kids were small.
Yeah.
Telly Monster was always uncool, excitable, excited, and there for life. So that's why I like Telly.
Fair enough. That's a good answer. I think Lindy Booth came on my show once, and she just topped it off by everybody, and she actually brought on a Muppet that someone had given her as a present. You think you usually be able to get them from Target or somewhere, or F.O. Schwartz, and have your own Muppet. And she'd had a Muppet made of her, and I was blown away. I just couldn't. I was just like, oh, there you go.
Perfect.
That's perfect. Brilliant. Before I stop recording, is there anything you'd like to say to people who are going to be watching or listening to this show, and Cobra Kai, obviously?
Appreciate it. I appreciate the people who are loving the show and has caused it to be a huge success. It's helpful to me, so I'm being super selfish in that way. I can't even begin to express how lucky I feel that I got cast in this role. It was apparently not an easy role to fill. So I guess I'm super grateful to get the part. And thanks, what do you call them? The golden tree?
The big three.
The big three. Sorry, I'm mixing this up with Harry Potter. Honestly, Chris, I don't know. I just am glad and I'm grateful. And every day that I can get to work or see auditions, and during the COVID period now, it's especially, I realize how blessed I've been. I hate to be trite, but I have been. I've gotten lots of auditions. The work followed me to Atlanta. I quit acting when I was raising my children. We needed insurance, and my husband is an actor as well. And we both just worked, and we lived in Louisiana for a long time. And, I had a wonderful life, but when we came to Atlanta, and the kids were a little bit bigger now, and in middle school and high school, and I started doing a little bit of theater, and so the business came to Atlanta for some crazy reason, and I just guess I'm very happy that it all turned out like that, and keep watching Cobra Kai.